All right, Arash, there's no shortage of things to talk about, but let's start with the internet staying undefeated after the announcement yesterday that Tom Brady is now a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. The picture that's going around, and we have it on the Sportscade socials, is Tom Brady with the Mark Davis haircut. How is that not just the best?
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. You know what's amazing about that, fellas? Fox is paying this guy over $300 million to be their lead analyst, and part of, you know, the part of the perks of being an analyst means you get to go to practice and you get to get in on production meetings and all those things. Brady can't do any of that as an owner. He can't criticize officials as an owner. What kind of analyst is Tom Brady? Like, here's somebody who's just learning the ropes of this thing, and he can't even, you know, get all the things that are going to help him be great.
Tom Brady is playing chess. People haven't even pulled out the checkerboard. This is a brilliant move. Be like, I don't have to go to practice. I don't have to go early for production meetings. I just basically get to show up on Sunday, talk about that game, and then I'm done. Arash, it's the best job in broadcasting. Nothing better.
I am more nervous than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs right now, because when I got hired, I didn't disclose that I had purchased Riders shares in the last round. Like, should I have made that declaration? Like, am I in trouble?
Dave, I don't think it makes a difference in that league.
Whoa! Wow!
I mean, it's the wild
That's a two-chair body rock back shot by Arash. Wow!
Wait a minute! You got golf carts and medical carts going right through the opponent's sideline, taking out players. I mean,
no, that was a fire truck. It wasn't a medical cart. It was a fire truck.
Fire truck. There we go. Okay.
All right, Arash, here, since we started with the GOAT and the NFL, couple of things. If I'm British, I'm not happy for a lot of reasons, but every year we get tortured with the Khan family, but the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're going to wrap up their time in London playing the New England Patriots in what could be one of the worst football games of the year this weekend. Those poor people paying all that money to see some of the worst football anywhere on the planet.
Yeah. The thing about Jacksonville, like when let me start with New England. When the Pats won week 1 over Cincinnati, my takeaway was, man, New England might go 1-16. And they're kind of on that trajectory right now. But Jacksonville, watching that game last Sunday morning, guys, they look like a team that didn't go to training camp and hadn't practiced yet. Like, I am appalled at just how lost and scattered they are. You know, Trevor Lawrence, a quarterback, and all that draft capital in their front seven, and they're just a mess. And like, it almost felt, I don't know how you guys saw it. It almost felt like Caleb Williams was looking around at one point. He's like, is that really all that green grass? Like, he was almost hesitant because it felt like as a rookie, he's like, am I being baited into something that really isn't there? No, Caleb, it's there. They're just dreadful. I don't know what happens next with Jacksonville, but there's more and more talk about the NFL exploring international options of having a franchise somewhere. And if there is a team that moves in the NFL, my prediction is Jacksonville is in the leadoff position to do it. And I'm not sure if it's going to be with the Khan family or not, but that franchise just seems hopeless.
If the NFL goes international, then what's your prediction? Don't say Toronto. We all know it's not happening in Toronto, but
yeah.
Is London choice one, or is Mexico?
Dave, honestly, I think what they'd like to have, and this is very pie in the sky down the road, is I think they'd like to have a European division.
Okay.
Like, they've played in Munich, they've played in Frankfurt, they've played all over England, at Wembley, now at Tottenham. Next year, they're going to play in Madrid. I think the NFL's like, if they, what are they at, 32 teams, if they ever get to like 40 teams of, 8 divisions of 5 teams, something like that, I think that's what they want to do. Look, the fact that they went down to Brazil, the fact that they continue to knock on the door of Mexico, I think they want to be as global as they can. I think the place that has the least traction is Canada, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. 32 teams. There's arguably 16 to 20 good quarterbacks in the league, which leaves a lot of holes. Tonight, the Thursday nighter, Denver Broncos at the New Orleans Saints. So with Derek Carr's injury, is Jameis Winston still the backup there? Is he going to be starting? And you got Bo Nix, who's coming in as a raw rookie, who's, just learning his way. Like, what do you even make or take from this game tonight? Do you go with Saints even just for the simple fact that they're just not as rookie-laden as the Broncos at quarterback?
Well, no, they are going rookie. Spencer Rattler, their 3rd-round pick out of South Carolina, he's going to be the starter. Jameis is now in the dumpster fire that is Cleveland. He's Deshaun Watson's backup over there with the Browns.
Right. Sorry, Jameis Winston fans. No disrespect. I thought you were still because he was hiding nicely on the roster in New Orleans for a couple of years, making some decent money.
He sure was.
And playing a little while, but I think when Derek Carr got hurt, any chance the New Orleans Saints had of maybe even a wild card this year went out the window, because I just don't think. And I like Spencer Rattler. I remember watching him on that Netflix show a million years ago about the high school quarterbacks and watching him progress through college. But he had a decent game last week. But then when it came time, Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers turned up the pressure on him. And when they started blitzing, that's when it seemed like the lights went out for him. And it just looked like he was a kid playing a college game, and there were pros on the other side on defense.
You know what's amazing, guys, is how knee-jerk and how quick we try and make sense of things after a week or two. Like, let's go back at the end of week 2, right? We're taking the 10,000-foot view. The next great team in the NFL is the New Orleans Saints. Here they are putting up 40 points in back-to-back games. Derek Carr is just lighting up the NFL. And, man, the Baltimore Ravens are in trouble. They are 0-2. They just gave up a 10-point lead at home in the 4th quarter to the Las Vegas Raiders. Lamar Jackson is washed. This team is in trouble. They lost their entire defensive staff. Are the Ravens even going to make the playoffs? Well, now the Saints are a complete dumpster fire. They can't get out of their own way. They just gave up 50 to Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, and the Ravens haven't lost since. So here we are through 6 weeks, and we're trying to figure out who's great and who's not. I look at it right now, and I'm saying to myself, I get that Kansas City's 5-0, but Baltimore may actually be the best team in the AFC. And I look at the NFC, and I'm like, yeah, my beloved Vikes are 5-0, but I still think Detroit's the best team, even with the Aiden Hutchinson injury. And then I look at my clock, and I'm like, right, it's October 17th, and none of this matters right now, because all you got to do is be 2 or 3 games above 500 at the end of November, be healthy, and that's when the season really starts.
All right, we were talking about the GOAT in Tom Brady. But you've got a bit of a take when it comes to an underrated player that may be playing right now. And then is it a hockey player that you wanted to talk about, Arash?
Yeah, there was a major milestone that happened in sports last night, guys, that I think even 10 years ago, definitely a generation or two ago, would have been there would have been a countdown. It would have been a huge story. Evgeny Malkin scored his 500th goal last night. And I get that he's Robin to Batman in Pittsburgh, but that is an incredible. Alexander Ovechkin today said, I texted him. I said, "Welcome to the club." He's in rarefied air. And the guy who set up the goal had his 1,600th point last and Sidney Crosby's the 5th fastest to 1,600, and Wayne and Mario are among the 2 that are ahead of him. It's amazing what they've done down there in Pittsburgh, because not only have they won 3 cups, and not only have they been in the conversation for a while, but they just do it so damn quietly that here you have maybe the best 1-2 punch in all of hockey, especially now that Stamkos is in Nashville. He's not with Edmonton. And it's just like they are so under the radar that, 500 goals and 1,600 points comes and goes, and it's barely even on our radar.
Arash, you missed the memo. The Canadian media was focused last night, and I talk about laser focused. Austin Matthews scored his first goal as a Toronto Maple Leaf captain. That's what needed to dominate the headlines in a meaningless game and a win against LA. So, can you either get on board or just get off the boat altogether? Come on now. Yeah. That Austin Matthews goal is going to mean way more. Oh, wait. Actually, it doesn't mean a thing. And I agree with you. Look at guys like when somebody gets presented the silver stick for 1,000 games and you start going, okay, 82 games if you're lucky every year. God, that's a long time. And then you start thinking like 500 goals. Look how many players in the league will never get to 50, and then 1,600 points. And it's kind of like, that's the kind of stuff that should stop everything in its tracks and celebrate it. But they don't, because it's a smaller market. It's all of that. It's truly remarkable how
they're just Pittsburgh just likes to keep it low key, like even in their heyday, like it was the HBK line and they had a sandwich at Primanti Brothers for them. Like it's been all very, we got our own little clique here and this is the way we're going to go about it.
See, and that was going to be my question, because it's hard to fathom that we would overlook him that much. But even when you watch highlight packages from the NHL, very often you don't see what Malkin is doing, but you're sure going to see what Sidney Crosby is doing. And so is it a situation where he simply is in Sid's shadow that much that we don't take notice of what he's doing? Or is there maybe something in the back of our mind saying, if he wasn't playing with Sidney Crosby, even though they don't play together on the same line, would he be putting up the numbers that he does?
Yeah, I don't know. But it's funny, like if you asked any hockey fan, top 20 players of the last 10 years, top 25 players of the last 10 years, and they just started thinking and naming some off, I bet you out of 100 hockey fans, maybe 2 or 3 would put Malkin on that list. And I bet you of the 100, most would be shocked that he has 500 goals.
When I heard that, I was like, wow, the quietest 500 goals, ever. This is Coast to Coast with Arash Madani. He's on the Western Pizza guest hotline. We got a million things going on. We were talking earlier with Eric Francis. The Flames are 4-0. They're the Billy Bean Moneyball story of the season so far. The Oilers only have 1 win. And what was the stat? Let me just go back here. And is there reason to panic? Because the Preds, the Avs, the Canucks, and the Sharks still don't have any wins at all. I know we're only 2 weeks into the season, but I would have thought the Predators, not only with Stamkos, but with Jonathan Marchessault, a solid lineup, good goalie, and then you look at the Avs, Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, all of that. Is the competition just that good in the Western Conference that they haven't been able to hit stride?
And the Avalanches have had no goaltending either, which has been a little bit of a problem for them. Look, the Sharks may not win a game all year. I mean, I say that tongue in cheek.
Well, and that's fine. Like nobody expected that. But like, if you were to say the Predators, the Avs, Canucks, it's kind of it's the sample size thing too. It's the baseball thing I always talk about. It's like, all right, if you start a baseball season like 2-8, everyone's up in arms. But if you go 2-8 in like the middle of July, nobody notices. I think if you go 4 games in middle of January that you haven't won and the NFL playoffs are going on and all the kind of everything just kind of meshes and jumbles into one. I don't know about the other teams. Just because I live around the corner from the Leafs practice facility, the Leafs had almost a month-long training camp. Like, I don't understand why the preseason is so long for these guys. I don't know if every team went that long. I know, like, Craig Berube's here. He's the new head coach. Maybe he wanted some extra time. But these dudes don't need that long. They don't need preseason games. So I don't know where every team is at to start the year, but the Colorado one is a little surprising. I think of all the teams that you mentioned there, Maz.
Do you have In your analytical mind, is the date American Thanksgiving when you find out the true colors of an NHL team, so to speak? You find out what their identity is, who they are, what they might be. Is that kind of the date, that the sample size that you need to get an accurate read on a team?
Maybe even a little later, Dave, honestly.
Yeah.
Maybe even into the middle of December. Like for me, NFL is U.S. Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Because then at that point you have, about 5 weeks left in your regular season, and you kind of know who's on IR. You kind of know where you're at. I also think it depends on your roster construction for an NHL team. Are you a bunch of vets? Do you have a bunch of kids? All that kind of stuff. So I think that all weighs into the conversation too. And then ultimately goaltending. Like, what do you have there? I think by U.S. Thanksgiving you find out whether or not your goaltender's legit. I'll tell you that much.
All right. We're chatting with Arash Madani here. We're going to get CFL, and then we're going to wrap on Major League Baseball and talk villains. CFL, you had said this weeks ago, and it looks like that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The Ottawa Red Blacks are going to continue to crumble, and I think they're going to lose to the Toronto Argonauts this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And then Toronto's going to get the home playoff game, and then they're going to play Ottawa, and they're going to lose again. Speaking of the Red Blacks, and then it'll be Toronto and Montreal in the CFL final. Ottawa, it was a great start, but just an epic collapse down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, you lose your left tackle and your right tackle and your entire linebacking core and a couple of receivers. That's no recipe for anything. Here's what's interesting, guys. The Argos are a 4.5-point favorite this week at home to Ottawa. 2 weeks from now, or whenever it is, when the East semifinal is going to be played in Toronto between the Argos and the Red Blacks, would you be surprised if that line is up to like 7.5 or 8 or even 8.5?
Not at all.
Same two teams, same stadium, same game. I think that Ottawa's record is the only thing that's kind of keeping that line close. Toronto is the far superior team. Toronto is coming. Like, the Argos, to me, after Hamilton, have been the hottest team of the last month. And Ticats just found themselves too far back to get back into the hunt. Obviously, the Riders are right there in the conversation, too. So, yeah, I think Ottawa's in big trouble. Here's the one thing about the Red Blacks, like, if you're looking for any kind of silver lining, their defense starts with their defensive line. So what do you expect from the Argos? You'd expect screen game, play action, run the ball. Those can be areas where passes get deflected, on screens for picks or running the football. It could be turnovers. But I honestly think that the Argos stomped them on Saturday afternoon. I really do.
Arash, I give credit where credit is due, because you came here, and again, you can go to the podcast at sportscage.com, and you can see where you came out and clear as day said the Ottawa Red Blacks are not going to win another game this season before they were here to take on the Riders. And I thought, you are insane. This team is better than that. And yeah, I knew they were banged up at the time, but I still just wasn't buying what you were selling. But now it just doesn't seem like anything can go right. And do you think Drew Brown is the solution at quarterback for that franchise?
I don't know if he's the solution. I think he's the better option.
Okay.
I think he's the better option over Masoli. The Dustin Crum thing is, kind of played itself out. Could he be a number 2? Maybe, I guess. They've tried everything with Masoli. They so badly wanted it to work with Jeremiah. It's not. To me, Masoli's going to be a number 2 somewhere next year. Maz started the conversation today saying, there might be 15 good quarterbacks in the NFL. I take the under there. And so if there is not a position in sports where there is so much demand with so little quality supply. And so I think Ottawa, I don't want to say they're stuck with Drew Brown. I think they have to continue to ride Drew Brown, because what else can they do? What's going to happen with McLeod Bethel Thompson? I don't know. What's going to happen with Vernon Adams this offseason? I don't know. What's going to happen with Montreal? Are they going to move one of those guys? Calgary's probably going to move on from Jake Maier, you got to think. So I think Drew Brown's going to be the guy because he's going to have to be the guy.
Yeah, and it's funny, you mentioned all of the games in the CFL this weekend, the implications. It's funny, when Davis Alexander is running the Alouette offense, he kind of like can move it up and down the field at times very efficiently. We've all kind of gotten used to Cody Fajardo, the dinking and the dunking and the spinoramas every once in a while, and sometimes making it look harder than it is. And legitimately, Jason Moss, like, what do you do as you're going down the stretch here? And that game in Hamilton tomorrow, and I know you're probably going to be going to see it in person between the Ticats and the Stamps, because why not? It's Friday Night Football, and who doesn't want to see that? You've got Bo Levi Mitchell, who, the best part about Bo to me is his carefree attitude. Like, man, it doesn't matter. Whatever you guys decide to do, Bo is going to be A-okay, whether he's a Ticat next year or not. You have the mayor thing. You have Matthew Schiltz, who's going to be starting the game. You've got all of these questions in the air. So for a lot of people are saying it's kind of a nothing game, maybe in the standings, but if you're a fan of the CFL and positioning and players where they're going to end up, there may be some great audition tape out there tomorrow to be like, oh, okay. Because keep in mind, our quarterback here in Saskatchewan, who is lighting up the league, is a free agent come the end of the season, if I'm not mistaken, right? Trevor Harris's contract is up. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, so they're going to offer Trevor the most money in the league, or maybe number 2 behind Rourke, because they're going to have to. Like, yep. There's no other choice in the matter.
I know.
You know, like, Harris is going to make probably somewhere between Chad Kelly and Nathan Rourke money, is my guess. And they can give it a lot of that to him up front, so that from a tax implication standpoint, there's more money in his jeans and make his base salary less. Because that's what you have to do. There's no other option in this scenario, because if you are Edmonton with new ownership, wouldn't you back up the Brinks truck for Trevor Harris right now? If you are maybe Hamilton, I'm not sure what they think of Bo. I'm really not sure. I'm also really not sure who's calling the shots there. What do you do this offseason? So it's going to be interesting. I think the Davis Alexander thing, guys, is really interesting, because all he's done is succeed there in Montreal. And I wonder, like, Jason Moss is not a vanilla play caller, not a vanilla game planner. I wonder if they're going to have certain packages and certain series for Alexander in an East Final to come in and run the offense to try and keep the defense off guard and off balance. I wonder if at some point early in the second quarter, it's a 10-7 ball game, and out trots Davis Alexander on 2nd and 5, and the defense is going to be like, uh-oh, now what? You know, because it's all tendencies, it's all whatever they're going to do. Why not? Why not mix it up a little bit? Especially, I know he won a Grey Cup last year. I don't know who the better quarterback is on that roster.
Okay, let's wrap on this. It's the division series in baseball. You've got the American League, you've got the National League. Dave and I were talking about this last hour. Baseball to me is so much better when the villains are playing a role in the final scene of the movie. The villains being we're going to buy our way into the World Series every year. We're going to try Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees. To me, I love it. It's the best part of baseball. You automatically have a bad guy. You've got a heel in this. So is villains good for business in your mind when it comes to major leagues and the playoffs?
I do. Big markets are good because it's such a regional sport. I just found it amazing the other night when Cleveland intentionally walked Lieber Torres to get to Aaron Judge. Like, what are you doing? Like, yeah. And if that's an analytics thing, then just like torch the entire office. Like, when everyone's gone home for the night, like, get some lighter fluid and set the place on fire. Because that's the stupidest thing you could possibly do, and to do it in the Bronx. Like, of all the, like, at Yankee Stadium, you're going to do that? And Judge just shrugs after and said, you know, It's amazing, guys. The Yankees haven't been to a World Series since 2009, when they won it with Jeter and A-Rod and Teixeira and all those guys. CC Sabathia was their ace.
That's crazy. Because you think they're... Oh, no, they've been in the World Series every couple years, but it's been that long.
Yeah, been that long. The Red Sox have won 2 in that span, if not 3. 3 maybe in that span. So it's funny, if you think about the Yankees over the years, this is probably not even their best team of the last 5, and yet here they are with their best chance to get into the World Series with a 2-0 lead in the series. Sorry, I'm just watching the game while we're chatting here.
Just throwing this out there, and that analytics department in Cleveland. Didn't they have some influence by, what was it, Shapiro and Atkins or something that had something to do in Cleveland and analytics? Oh, sorry.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Mighty Guardians have done a lot better since those 2 guys left Cleveland. I'll tell you that.
Hey, Captain Obvious, stop pointing out the big things, the road signs, okay? The billboards along the highway, all right?
Sorry.
All right. He's Arash Madani. He joins us on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We call it Coast to Coast for Brian Golly. Arash, will catch up with you next week when Barney is back. Always good. Can you imagine in the World Series if it came down to Aaron Judge, 2 outs, bases loaded, Yankees down by 3, and they bring in Shohei Ohtani to pitch, and then he strikes him out? Could you imagine? A better
and then he blows out his elbow again. There's a question for you. You got a $70 million a year investment.
Ooh.
And you say, okay, you can put him out there to win the World Series, but he won't be able to pitch for you again next year. Would you do it?
Go win the World Series because of the money, just everything. Yeah. You take the win now.
With you.
Take the win now.
If he was throwing a no-hitter, I go to the Ross Atkins school. If he's throwing a no-hitter through 8, I take him out of the ball game, hoping that my bullpen can hold him.
Dave, the Ross Atkins school would have pulled him in the 5th. He wouldn't have seen the 8th.
Yeah. What was I thinking?
Right.
All right. Hey, all right, we're going to take a break. There's a lot being said. A lot of it you could be like, you guys are so far off base on everything you've talked about so far in the show. Let us know on the Capital Ford Lincoln text line, 306-936-6262. Capital Ford Lincoln, Saskatchewan's #1 Ford retailer, capitalfordlincoln.com. We're going to take a break. If you're watching the All-New Sports Cage on our stream on X or on YouTube, thank you. We'd like and subscribe. And you're also got it on the home of local sports in Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM.